America, a country where freedom was every man's birthright, where a man answered to his conscience, not a royal oath. But over the years, we've traded away that freedom, one war and one government promise at a time. This is the Destroyercon Show. If you felt that loss, if you noticed that the country is changing into something more controlled and bitter, then you already know why we're here. If you like what we say, please subscribe and share the show. Let's return to a nation conceived in liberty. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Destroyercon Show. Thank you for joining us as we work to once again destroy the mainstream consensus. I'm joined again, as per usual, with my good friend Keller Williams, and this is your host, Liam Childers. There's just so much to get into today. I mean, really, more than usual. I mean, what is there not to cover? You know, it's one of these things, Kellers, where it feels like you go from one week and it's like you have almost nothing to the next week where you have like possibly the biggest story that you've broken in the history of the channel, and there's no in between. So obviously, I feel like we should just start with the elephant in the room, because every other story is basically periphery, which is this massive Epstein scandal, the release of the Epstein files. You were telling me before we started that you actually have not seen anything about this, really.
I've been in the dark for 4 days because I've been at my second wedding for
Dude,
this year.
it's like everything. It's like everything. Pizzagate's real. Fucking Kosovo is working with the U.S. government to traffic children. Like, everybody's involved. Bill Gates is giving Melinda medicine so he doesn't give her STDs. Like all sorts of fucking... It's just crazy, dude. It's just everything burst. You know, Trump's in it. Fucking Hitler's in the Epstein files, dude. Like, what are we even talking
Hitler's
about?
in the Epstein files.
Yeah, they even have...
Crazy.
There's even a reference. The Jets owner's in the Epstein files. They make a reference to the Jets owner and, like, working with him or whatever. And they also mention a game where the Dolphins beat the Jets, like, 22-3. It's just crazy.
Wait,
it's
the
like,
Dolphins are in the Epstein files?
the Dolphins are in the Epstein files, but only in the case they beat the Jets. It didn't even actually mention them by name. Yeah, I know. The fucking Dolphins and the Jets are in the Epstein files. Again, the Jets owner was like likely a collaborator. Meanwhile, the Dolphins owner, who is a Zionist Jew, is the one fucking Jew not in the Epstein files. So I'm stuck with that reality. But besides that, let's like take a step back. Just think about the chain of events here. Like, and I guess we should also preface this with, there's levels of variability to all the things that are in the files. There are certain things that are way more verifiable and certain things that are way less verifiable. But there's a lot to be able to say that a lot of the conspiracy theories people have been having have been correct. I mean, there's stuff to do with demon sacrifices. There's stuff to do with eating, like, babies. Like, there's all sorts of crazy shit. And again, who knows how much of that's real? There's a bunch of sources that are more unreliable and less unreliable depending on your metric. But it is really shocking to see just how crazy it is. And it's kind of, in a funny way, almost alleviating, in a sense of, like, people were, like, trying to debate on, like, what level of conspiracy or how involved Epstein was and so on and so forth. And as somebody who said a lot of things from the beginning, the files seem to validate a lot of more, like, typical conspiracy theories along our side. I mean, really, like, shows the cooperation between the Democrats and the Republicans, and how there's this essential uniparty that seems to run the establishment, and how this sex scandal kind of is at the heart of it. So, I mean, it's really quite shocking. There's so many different angles to go with it, and I thought like pretty much what we could just kind of do is talk about some certain instances I've seen, and I guess that you've seen, but you haven't really seen anything, and just kind of get a reaction to it, and really talk about what we need to do going forward. So, yeah, I mean, do you have anything to add to that, Keller, before I like keep going?
Let's dig into it because I'm learning all this for the first time.
Yeah, so I think one of the biggest ones I've seen was this file they had um that talked about um how where is it? Basically it's the one of them is the Trump file, and it mentions the like how like the president was in it and everything, and it was interesting to see because one of the things that I think has kind of gone under the radar is the level at which Kushner has played within the administration. And he's pretty actively in the Epstein files as well. Of course, the president is trying to play it off like the Epstein files exonerate him, and in kind of the same way Musk is doing this, because there's nothing that actually necessarily links them to it, and a lot of the stuff is them like basically like some pretty remarkable claims, but it's less verifiable. But I don't know. I don't.
Yeah, I heard.
Especially in Trump's case.
I heard briefly that like Elon Musk was like too autistic to understand that when he excuse me, when he was invited to the island, like he was like too busy, and he said, "Nah, I can't go. I'm too busy running SpaceX."
Yeah,
there's Epstein or whatever was like, "No, dude, I'm talking about fucking underage children. Hey, what don't you get?"
Yeah,
like I'm very confused. Yeah, break it down for me. But go list line by line.
Oh well, I have to pull it up. But so here's what I was saying. Here's some. These are the CHS reports. So from confidential human source, part of the FBI investigation. So Harry something has been involved and has developed Trump's hotels and is a billionaire. Harry introduced him to the Indonesian CIA. He speaks Indonesian, bought his Beverly Hills home from Trump at an inflated price. Trump told him that he was going to fuck Amazon over their military contracts, and CHS advised that this was a real collusion story. Trump has been compromised by Israel, and Kushner is the real brains behind his organization, his presidency. There's another one where it talks about Harvard Law professor Alan Dershowitz. CHS has learned Dershowitz's influences may have many students from wealthy families. For example, Josh Kushner and Jared Kushner were both his students. Dershowitz told CHS that if he was young again, he would be holding a stun gun as an Israeli agent, intelligence Mossad agent. CHS believed Dershowitz was co-opted by Mossad and subscribed to their mission.
And that's Alan Dershowitz?
Yes. Jeffrey Epstein was represented by Dershowitz. CHS remembered Dershowitz tell Alex Acosta that Epstein belonged to both U.S. and Allied intelligence services. CHS shared phone calls between Dershowitz and Epstein, during which she took notes. After these calls, Mossad would then call Dershowitz to debrief. Epstein was close to the former Prime Minister of Israel, Ehud Barak, and was training as a spy under him. Barak believed Netanyahu was a criminal. Saudi Arabia, Israel, and the United Arab Emirates are allied against Qatar, Turkey, and Iran, and Syria. One of CHS's, who presumably worked, I guess it's blacked out, asked CHS a lot of questions about Epstein. CHS became convinced that Epstein was co-opted Mossad agent. So this is in the FBI reports. Uh, so basically, Shabbat's doing whatever they can to co-opt the presidency. It's some of it's more eccentric claims, but basically just throughout the files, there's this link. Basically between the two, and it's pretty insane how like clear the connection between the United States between Jeffrey Epstein and Israel is. They even have this one, and it's literally an email from Epstein's account to Ehud Barak. He says, and it's Barak saying, "Hi Jeff, are you going to be in London on Thursday? Best, Ehud Barak." And then Epstein's response is, "Unfortunately not. By the way, you should make it clear that I don't work for the Mossad." Smiley face. And then Barak's response, literally, smiley, like the colon with the parentheses smiley face. And then Barak's response is, "You or I?" And Epstein responds, "That I don't." Smiley face. Like,
That is crazy.
that is crazy, dude. This is the former prime minister of Israel, dude. And all of this really to me, and this is something I've been joking about, but there's a little bit of level of irony of it, and we'll get more of this into the Iran section, but it seems to vindicate what the Ayatollah has been saying for years, that the U.S. and Israel are the great Satan. I mean, how can you argue against it at this point? I mean, like, our government officials are all defending pedophiles, and to a pretty extreme degree because they want to get their Middle East policy done. There's also there's also a whole situation where Jeffrey Epstein was in touch with Barry Weiss's wife, which that's just kind of hilarious on the face of it. You know Barry Weiss, right?
I've heard that name several times.
The CBS news contributor that is like completely owned by Israel. And she's like one of the people that's really been behind trying to make this like woke right thing stick. Either way, she's a lesbian, so obviously a very conservative source here. That's who we want to lead our movement. Jewish lesbian, and the email is talking about to her wife, "How did it go introducing your partner to your mom? Even better than the good career move?" And then, of course, she responds back, "Ahaha, I missed this and just figured out who you are. It actually went great. How's New York? Which prince is trying to buy the house today? When you," and then he responds back, "When do you and your babe get back in New York City?" So, like, he's just talking to everybody who's, like, involved in this conspiracy theory. And these are all the people, of course, who were telling us how, none of this was real. Ben Shapiro, as lately as, like, last week, was trying to say that Epstein this was all just a big conspiracy. It doesn't seem like that's really the case. So he has connections to everybody. He's now one of the most documented men in history. There is another funny snippet. Is that Ron Paul is in the Epstein files? I know, but it's kind of hilarious because his only mention in the Epstein files is that he is the only Republican candidate that the Israeli government doesn't like. So,
That's crazy.
I know. It's mentioned 2 times, and both times are here's one of them. It's from the spreadsheet. Any conceivable GOP candidate, with the exception of Ron Paul, will be far friendlier to Israel than the current administration. The Republican presidential candidates, with the exception of anti-war libertarian Ron Paul, have seized on Iran as possible winning issue. Can you believe that?
Conservatives fell for it again.
I know, dude. They keep falling for it again. And as Joe says, this is Keller's roommate and our good friend. For all the pedophile accusations libertarians get, pedophiles do sure hate them. Oh man. So oh, and then, there's always the thing about, there's now this whole debate about Fuentes being an asset. He waited until today to basically make a response to the whole situation. After trying to sell merch that was designed to look like Jeffrey Epstein's outfit. Be like, oh, it shows how interconnected and controlled they are by the Israeli government. Dude, you're such an asset, dude. And there's weird connections between him and Gamergate and all this other kind of stuff, which I think some of that's extreme, but it does seem like there at least has probably been a present, and we kind of know this to begin with, between 4chan and the Israeli government. And there's been talks in the past about how the Israeli government does want to spur anti-Semitism in the West as a means to essentially get more Jews to come to Israel. So it's really just kind of interesting how many levels have unfolded from the release of the files. Things that you didn't even think about from before have all just started to come out. So that's part of the level of it, is where does Epstein play with the alt-right? How does he connect to Trump? There's obviously connections between him and Bannon. Noam Chomsky is in the files. Noam Chomsky is in the files discussing IQ stats with Jeffrey Epstein. So, I know, dude. I know.
Crazy.
It's so crazy. The fucking Keynes versus Hayek rap battle is in the Epstein files.
No, that's YouTube video.
Yeah, dude.
Oh man.
Yeah, dude. The fucking
This is
Keynes
crazy.
versus Hayek rap battle is in the Epstein files. And it's from somebody, and it's, I guess, referring to a Milton Friedman essay. But there's just so many levels. I was mentioning before, there is the part where, Tony Blair and Bill Clinton are obviously very, very complicit in the Epstein files. And Bill Clinton and Tony Blair's, one of their greatest achievements, in European politics was the Yugoslav War and breaking away Kosovo from Serbia. And so one of the things that's been really interesting in the Epstein files is seeing how it's been essentially revealed that Kosovo was used because of the tensions caused from the war by NATO to traffic almost 1 million children through the country, through Thailand and into these terrible, pedophiles. And, they get the children from the places in the world that are considered to be the most destitute. They find a place in Europe that's probably majority white, where they can get all these young girls that meet the desires of their people, but they can ruin the affairs of that area. He talks about kind of similarly about Ukraine, where he talks about how the war in Ukraine is a great opportunity for his business and for a lot of the business of his associates, which is really unsurprising. I mean, obviously, NATO wouldn't coup the government of Ukraine, the previous government, unless it had an interest of trying to get its elites some kind of benefit. So there's just so many levels of it. There's levels where the way that he interacts with the Russians is really interesting. Part of it about him supporting a uprising against Putin, even though, the level at which the two of those interact is very, very complicated. There's over 1,238 references to Israeli intelligence and leadership in the Epstein files. One of the things that's really interesting about it as well is um, watching the reaction of the Zio shills to this news coming out of the Epstein files. One of the things that Laura Loomer's been trying to do is she found like 2 pages where they mentioned the government of Qatar. And this is their big gimmick, right? Is like the Qataris
Yeah.
the Qataris are the real ones controlling American politics. The Qataris are pulling the strings or whatever. Um and again, like everybody's just roasting Gloomer, being like, is this the government that you support? And just over and over and over again. And it's really just kind of interesting how much they really like it weaves into everything. I think there's a report now that Epstein's like the most documented person in human history. Here's another one I found, another quote with about Ron Paul and the Epstein files. Here's the paragraph. I wish I could tell you how it will end in Iran. I do think the more politically and economically fragile that country gets, the greater incentive the extremist mullah dictators have to engage us in military conflict. The problem is they'd like to keep the conflict limited, and they can't predict how far the U.S. will go, especially during an election year where everybody is falling over themselves to show who supports Israel the most, except for that dinkus Ron Paul. The history of these regimes is rife with examples of fermenting external conflict to unify a country that is crumbling from the inside. Dude, I mean, this is the thing, though. It really is, for me, as somebody who's been, like, really interested in Balkan politics for a while, really looked at, like, and obviously a libertarian as well. Serbia and Ron Paul have been like the big winners from the Epstein files, dude. The two of them, like everything the two of them said, have been exonerated. China too, because they are like killing their billionaire corrupt officials at the same time that like we're living under.
Yeah, I heard through the grapevine that he purged like several top generals or
Yeah,
something.
yeah, we'll get to that also in the show. I just kind of want to get through a few more things. Uh, I guess actually that's probably a good point to kind of just stop there. There's just so much, dude. It really is just so much. It's hard to express how much there is. Oh, I guess I would be remiss to add on to it because I mentioned it before. Pizzagate was real. Um, there
Always
the
has been.
I mean, like obviously, but like I mean, so who knows the Podesta? But I would seriously put into suspect the Podestas, and it's been that way for a while. But we do know, and the Epstein files have revealed the use of like cheese pizza as a code word for like like child abuse,
Kids,
essentially.
yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, I feel like we kind of knew that already, but like to see that kind of come out of the woodwork. There's also like these weird stories from some of the people that were accused. The one that's really been going around is this story about some guy who claims he was raped by Daddy Bush. Um, which on the front of it, that's already kind of crazy. I mean, imagine getting raped by H.W. Bush. But talks about how he was on this boat. He got raped by Daddy Bush. They cut the bottoms of his feet off as part of some weird ritual. Uh, Gave him all these drugs. So I mean, he's probably not a reliable witness. But and essentially like committed like ritual sacrifices on children. And it's actually kind of interesting because it's not the only case in the files where one of these people mentioned them doing ritual sacrifices of children. And
Yeah,
talking
I heard about this too.
yeah, and Epstein talking about how like he not supports, but like I mean, obviously he does support. He did it, but like talks about like how he likes certain videos of like real hardcore abuse of these children and so on and so forth. Um, and shifting these people around. There's evidence of like there's like the president of Montenegro's there in these files. There's of course the Clintons are heavily associated. Um, and just there's this one I saw about an ambassador where he like helped to cover up the ambassador's child with an like 11-year-old, but that's fucking crazy. So I don't know, dude. It's just hard to believe, and so much of it's come out, and really thank God for Thomas Massey that he was the one that really was able to finally push this to get out. But now that it's out, it's like, what do you even do? Because it's like all of them. I mean, it's just like, all right, it's time to just destroy the government. I mean, like, this is over. We just needed to just get this over with. The level at which this government has defended the worst amongst us really just kind of reveals that like most of the lies we've been told to support the regime over the years, which this regime that has really only existed since the end of the Second World War, it's all just built on lies to basically support these elites and this boomer generation that believes they never have to grow up, even when they're getting to be 70 years old. So where do we go from here? I don't really know. It just feels like this is one of those real. Something's going to end up happening, but who knows what's going to end up happening. It feels like one of those moments where it's almost impossible to not argue just a complete distrust of the state. I think it's kind of like this was what happened in the Soviet Union, right? Was that towards the end days, a lot of stuff became more transparent in the government. And once it became more transparent, people lost faith in their institutions. And that's when, like, it eventually collapsed. I mean, the economy failed, and then people just decided they didn't want to be it anymore. And the Soviets didn't have the power to actually stop them. And I think we're really starting to reach that point. And I think that this is going to be one of those things that's a nail in the coffin for that going forward. It just feels like after the release of this, and I mean, obviously, people have been talking about this for years, and people have been believing it. But after the Republicans tried to act like, oh, it was no big deal, and Kash Patel, who likely perjured himself in front of Congress because he said that there was no evidence while under oath. He said this under oath. There was no evidence of Epstein being involved in child trafficking. That's just blatantly a lie. So we'll see what happens
That's
there.
like the lie of the century. Like
know,
it's
dude.
so obvious.
I know, dude. Can you really imagine that you would tell a lie that bad just to suck Orange Man's dick? Like, really, dude. Like, really. I mean, any faith that we had in this administration, I think, is out the window. And it's looking really bad for the midterms too. There was this case recently where in the plus 17 Republican district out in Texas, the Democrat won. And they haven't, like, the Democrats haven't won that seat in like 40 years. So that seems like already the writing's kind of on the wall that this is going to be really bad. And who knows what comes out of this, but the admin has not seemed to know what they're going to do, and I think that it's pretty likely that they're going to take pretty radical options to try to hide this. And I think this is a good transition now. I guess actually before we go to that, just your immediate thoughts to all this that you've been hearing, or what do you know, and what do you think about it all? And again,
Well, like I said, I've been in a blackout for a while.
Yeah.
But what I'm hearing is that like this is kind of fucked up.
Yeah, this is like the big one. This is like, they've like had like the 3 waves of releasing files. This was like the big one.
We got Patel lined, and then the lie has been found out. But the thing is, nothing's gonna happen.
That's the problem, right? That's the problem. Nothing's gonna happen to any of these people.
Nothing's gonna happen.
Nothing's gonna happen to anything. Oh man, that has to be the thumbnail, doesn't it? We have to get Chud, and it has to be like, and it has to be Epstein's face, and he's gonna be pressing the button. It's gonna say nothing ever happened. I've got the idea right now.
Yeah, it's just like, excuse me. We'll find out that like literally this is all here. We'll find out. We now know who are the pedophiles. We know where it's coming from, who's doing it, and just confirmation that how involved Epstein and Mossad but nothing's gonna happen. You're gonna have Bruce Pearl trying to spin it the way he does.
Yeah. And it's Qatar. It's really Qatar that's the one doing this.
It's really Qatar. It's really Iran.
Yeah.
Iran's the bad guy.
Yeah.
Don't you see they're killing 70 million protesters? Don't look at the Mossad.
Yeah, don't look at the IDF
of children,
or the IDF accepting the numbers from the Gaza Health Ministry that they killed 70,000 people.
Yeah, 70,000.
70,000.
I swore it was like close to like 95,000 just 2 years ago.
It might be that, but they're saying it's the Israelis' accepted number.
Well, they accepted 70,000. Okay, we're supposed to accept other
70,000 still a lot. 70,000 still a lot. I mean,
yeah.
I mean them.
But let's ignore all that because Qatar and Iran are the big baddies. Tucker Carlson, Qatarisan, whatever the fuck they want to call him.
Yeah, Tucker
Carlson. Yeah, here. That's what Mark Levin's calling him. Like that's so fucking stupid. And like clearly our government is evil.
Mm-hmm.
The American government is evil.
Yeah.
The Ayatollah is completely right to yell that because he understands what's going on. Like you have to wake up and just see this. It's like it's all there, but you're just gonna call it nothing's ever gonna happen. And you're just gonna call it but Trump, fell for it again award given to you right there and then. It's stupid. And this is really blackpilling. But I know that these are
blackpilling. Oh, here's another one. Here's another one that'll make your stomach churn. From Epstein. It looks like it's to himself, or maybe it's from somebody else. Either way, at my dinner table, I asked, "Why are you right-wing guys so anti-Semitic?" One said, "Historically, we all know it's actually been the Jews behind the government actually pulling the strings." And I said, "This is like coup." And one pointed to me, and they all started roar into laughter. Me, and one of the guys said, "How do you explain in only 3 days that there have been princes, prime ministers, and other ministers, emissaries, plus 2 presidents of world bodies? Guilty. So funny. Wish you were here."
What the fuck? Cooked. Just cooked.
Dude, it's so cooked, dude. It's so cooked. Bro, dude, it's just so cooked. It's just so cooked. But we just all need to die for them, and the way they're probably gonna do it, and this is the transition. The way they're probably gonna cover it up, the president of Serbia said it himself already, by bombing Iran. That's what it's gonna end up doing, Keller. That's how they're gonna try to make everybody forget about this. is that they're probably going to start the war with Iran. And that's what they did last time. I mean, that's what they did last summer, if you remember, actually, when this big fight between Trump and Massey was going on. That was right before they launched the Iran strikes. Now they're moving all this military force into the region right after they release the files. And I've seen expert sources that say that it's not likely that we have the firepower to dislodge them with our strikes, but I don't know. It seems like they might just do it anyways as a way to essentially sweep this under the rug. I feel like we'll probably know before too long how accurate that is. I know Lindsey Graham seems like he's been butthurt today. So perhaps not. But it does not strike me as implausible that to cover up this great tragedy that's been exposed, that they will cause another human tragedy to try to hide their evil. And so it just is really disheartening. What can you even say? Again, as we said before, and I'll say it again, outside of the fact that the Ayatollah seems to be pretty much vindicated in everything he's ever said. And now, after having to deal with this conversation for so long, of why we need to invade Iran and so on and so forth. The fact is now there's just no hiding what the real power behind this is. And that's actually, honestly, and I'll get your take on this too, but I think that's actually something that could be potentially very good, right? The fact that people, I think more now than ever, know that if we get into a war in the Middle East, that it's not for any of our interest. We're just going to be fighting for the Israelis, which we'll see what they try to do with that. But if it push came to shove, I mean, that would be a conflict that eventually would require boots on the ground if you actually wanted to win it. I don't think the regime would topple that easily. I know they've wanted to use protests to do that in the past, but this has always been a failure because I think it misunderstands a lot of times the natural origins of the protest, and when they co-opt the protest to make them militant as a way to try to overthrow the government, it loses a lot of the popular momentum because, like, the people kind of know. So I think that we're just entering unprecedented times. And I think that with the release of the Epstein files, all these ships right here, the war in Venezuela, Trump really having no hope in the midterms, it's either going to be they do nothing or they're going to do something incredibly drastic. And I don't know. It doesn't feel like this is one of those situations where nothing's going to happen. At least in the sense of nothing's going to happen at like trying to get these people arrested as they relate to the Epstein files. But I think something's going to happen as like a mirage to try to cover this up from the American people.
Well, it's gonna be a distraction.
Yeah, exactly.
Less a mirage, more like a distraction.
Mm-hmm.
It's like can't arrest Trump for being a pedophile or whatever. It's arresting all the people connecting it and stopping all business with Israel because of what Mossad and the IDF is doing. And it's oh look, Iran is being mean to its people.
Yeah.
We need to go regime change them real quick. It'll give you money. We'll give you war spoils stimulus check. There's some shit like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, that's just what's gonna happen.
Yeah. And the numbers they were trying to use, saying they killed 30,000 people, like that's just so preposterous. That
You know what? I've seen like 10 different numbers.
yeah,
I've seen
I think the real
like
number,
as low as 5,000
yeah,
to as many as 65,000.
I think the real number is about 3.7 thousand. Um, but they the idea that Iran killed half of the amount of people the Israelis are willing to claim that they killed in Gaza in 2 weeks is just rather ridiculous on the face of it. I feel like you didn't even hit 100,000 dead in like the Russian-Ukraine war until about like 3 months or so into the conflict. Like,
You keep questioning those numbers, and I call you an anti-Semite.
well, it's just become very. I mean, at this point, what even does it mean to be anti-Semitic? I mean, you have the Jewish
It means
pedophile
being right.
shot at.
Being right about
Yeah,
Epstein is
yeah. I
it's being
mean,
right about Mossad. He's being right about Israel. That's what it means.
I mean,
And they don't want you to be right, so they're gonna label you some whack job Tatarlson.
yeah.
That's
And it has nothing to
most
do with like
important.
actually whether or not you hate Jews or anything. It's just the fact that you don't believe that they should have all powerful control over your government. Like you just don't think that your tax dollars and your life should be dedicated to shilling out for a regime that seems to want you dead and is willing to
Exactly.
like rape your daughters and your sons too in order to alleviate their wealthy interest. And so, it becomes a question of like, what's even the point of having a government? I mean, obviously, like
Well,
we're both
obviously, we have a government
ANCAPs.
so that we can rape children.
Yeah, I mean that's what the anarcho-capitalist conclusion would be essentially, right? Like they claim that this government is supposed to protect your children and so on and so forth, but they have an interest in uh creating more crime so that it can expand its power by saying, oh, we have to take care of the crime or whatever, or we have to take care of the trouble or whatever. So, crisis breeds more state power. And then, they're already like people who have like very, very high amounts of power. They're just gonna do whatever they want to, and they control the abilities that keep them from getting caught. So like they're just gonna do whatever they want to. And Epstein, for all these people that like people are like, oh, he's so. If you see anything like from him talking, or like even like most of his emails are misspelled and stuff like that, he does not strike me as somebody who's actually really that intelligent. I mean, maybe intelligent in the sense that he was able to work himself up to the level and blackmail all these high power people, but he does not strike me as a very intelligent person. So like I think there's a level where it really shows uh like the complacency of Americans and the fact that we're willing to essentially just accept this government in which um stupid pedophiles run us like idiots. We have idiots running us who know nothing about uh history or politics or how to run a civilization. They live like children into their 70s and 80s, uh having sex with underage girls and doing all sorts of drugs on party boats and so on and so forth. And the people who pay the consequences are the Americans and not these people. And it really does make you think just basically what's even the point? And that's what I was talking about earlier with the Soviet Union, right, Keller, is that
Yeah.
and this is why I don't think a war in Iran would be in anybody's. I think that they overestimate what a war in Iran would do for them. I think a war in Iran, unless the Iranians strike first, and I think that's what they want, right? I think they want to provoke the Iranians to strike first. So that way, everybody gets us to seeing red. They've killed Americans unprovoked, quote unquote. Ignore what they did last year and so on and so forth. Then they can get their war, and then people, will come back however many years later and will realize it's an inside job or whatever. But I think they overestimate how many people will fall for that, even if they do that. I also think they overestimate the reality that they kind of want to do it without even having to do that. So there is a level where you get to think, right? Like if you don't make that justification, everyone's just going to see it as like Israel's war, and it's going to end up being a massive quagmire. Um, and we've talked about like, oh well, we had our Afghanistan, or just like the Soviet Union or whatever. No, Iran would really be our Afghanistan in the sense that we would drain so much resources that it would likely be what ends us as a global power. And I think, um, really, that's one of the reasons that the real winner of an Iran-American war is the Chinese. So, what do you think about that, Keller? I mean, I know you're Iranian, so I imagine you've been keeping up with what's going on there somewhat. Of course, you've been in Orlando all weekend, but what do you have to say for that?
Yes, partying with Latinas and drinking. Yeah, no, it's kind of simple.
Yeah.
Well, I guess it's not simple. It's not simple, but like I mean, if I was the Ayatollah, um, what would I do as the Ayatollah?
I would make them strike you first.
Well,
That's
I
what I
mean,
would do.
yes.
I would
I mean, that's the obvious.
I mean, I think that there's real factions within his government, right, that want to start the war of the U.S. because they kind of have this idea that it's going to happen.
Yeah, I wouldn't. I definitely wouldn't be retarded and like strike America. That's what
Yeah, that's what they want.
the government won.
Because then they can actually
Obviously,
get in the justification to put boots on the ground and so on and so forth. I would make
but
them.
I'm a real sucker for second chances. Maybe I would try and meet with Trump diplomatically. I don't think that might happen, but
I don't. Well, I mean, they've been
we'll
trying
try
to
the
do that.
easy
That's
way
the thing,
first.
right? Is that they're still trying to do that. They do have the table open. The U.S. isn't accepting it.
Israel says no.
Yeah, I think really like your real conclusion has to be that you just have to wait, and if they strike you, you have to be ready, and that's really it. You just got to prepare. And I think the thing is that the Ayatollah is not stupid, and he's an old man at this point. So there is a real level where, and this is, I think, why they did that whole move with the previous war, the 12-day war, where they made the offering to the U.S. to try to drop the bomb, and so they could save face and everybody wins and so on and so forth. Um, I think that if the U.S. strikes them again, that's gone. I don't think there's really a circumstance where the Ayatollah is going to allow Iran to strike first. There are definitely hardliners in the government that would want it, but I also don't think though if we strike Iran, they're gonna hold anything back. Like I think that this time it really would be like they've prepared. They got all these missiles and these new defense systems within the last 6 months from China. And one thing that the Israeli sources have all been saying is that they were surprised by how effective the Iranians actually struck the Israeli homeland. That's why they gave up after 12 days. Because I mean, obviously they wanted to continue it long term. The Iranians learned a lot from the previous war, and have tried to make a lot of changes to make sure that a lot of the things that hurt them last time don't happen again. The problem with the Israelis is that I don't think they've actually learned as much. I don't know what they could learn because a lot of it's more material based, right? The U.S. doesn't have the materials to fund the Israelis for a long term war. But the Israelis, to beat the Iranians, would have to fight a long term war. So there's just nothing they could do. Because, I mean, like, what? They're going to pay for their own military? you know? So, which maybe that's what the $1.5 trillion defense budget Trump is proposing is for. But at the end of the day, I mean, like, it is one of those things where it's hard for me to see a situation where, unless they really were just able to kill the Ayatollah really quickly and get all the high command, and that was enough to somehow destabilize the government, which I really don't think it would be, because I think any situation where the U.S. and Israel prove the Ayatollah right, essentially, and that would be, attacking Iran, that justifies their regime. And so that actually strengthens them instead of weakens them. So, I mean, like, unless you just killed everybody, which they tried already and it didn't work, you're not going to be able to end that. It's just kind of be going to be a quagmire. Yeah, I think that's really what Iran is just a massive quagmire. But yeah, I mean, as I was saying before, I think who would really win would be China, because I mean, if you think about it from the Chinese perspective, Iran means that America cannot shift their military ever. I mean, like, at least until that war ends, it's going to be stuck in the Middle East, while they can basically do what they want to in Asia. Not only that, but the amount of money that will be spent on a war with Iran, which is basically Afghanistan and Iraq combined, I mean, it will permanently bankrupt the U.S. There's really no chance of fixing it after that point. And, from the Chinese perspective, they're kind of in the boat where, sure, their economy's not doing great, but if the American economy collapses and their economy collapses at a similar time, they can basically not fall as low as the Americans and hope to rise up faster, which I think would be pretty likely, especially seeing as they don't have the world reserve currency. Which, interestingly, Z was trying to advocate for, I think, more of like a way to show that there's pressure against the American world reserve currency, but I thought that was interesting as well. But the real main thing to do with China, actually, before I go to that, is there anything you want to say, Lenny, last closing thoughts on Iran?
Nothing in particular. I think we've said enough. Iran, actually good. Mossad, bad. Israel, bad.
Yeah.
And we're doomed.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it. But
To sum it up.
as I was saying with China, though, their big story there this week was the purge of multiple higher up generals. Let me get their names up again. It was basically the entire Chinese command.
Yeah, my big question is the why. I saw that. I thought, well, that was interesting. But what are the implications of this?
So Zhang Yujia, it was the main one, and Zhang Yujia was basically someone who had been in the administration forever, right? I mean, him and like Xi Jinping's dads worked together in in previous Chinese governments. Like, they're like princelings, which that's a term. And if you don't know what a princeling is, a princeling is essentially the sons of the original founders of the CCP, who now are the political leaders. Like, and there's actually a large number of that, and that was a big thing in previous Chinese administrations that created a lot of corruption. Xi has kind of always waged a war against the princelings. Of course, the irony is that he is a princeling, but so you think, though, that Zhang Yujia was somebody that would have ties to this administration forever. He was very close, very loyal to the president, but there were signs that he kind of contended with him, and he was probably, because of his position as leader of the People's Liberation Army, which is obviously the Chinese army, he was basically the only person who could have rivaled Xi Jinping in terms of power. So I think that there's probably 3 levels to this, right? I think that I mean, his claims, of course, and these claims have been that he's doing this crackdown essentially as a way to remove corruption from the party. And he's been doing this for a long time. Is having these big corruption scandals where he like removes people from the government and basically puts them on trial and makes a show out of them being corrupt and et cetera, et cetera. And largely, one of the things from this move is that there's obviously there is probably corruption that existed. I mean, the rumors about the Chinese government and like what they put their nuclear weapons, their missiles, and so on and so forth, the preparedness of the Chinese army. So that was probably there, right? Like there probably was a level of corruption that led to this decision. But I think the real main thing is that Xi Jinping is using this as a way to show that nobody is safe from his authority. Like that he's essentially the one who's in control of the Chinese government, because Zhang was essentially the one person who would have been safe from his anti-corruption campaigns. And that no longer seems to be the case. I mean, they were friends since they were young, so you would think that maybe, just maybe, personal reasons would get in the way of his political aspirations. But I think that's one of the things about Xi is that that's never been the case, and so you shouldn't really expect that to be the case. And so there's two minds on this, right? Like obviously, he's doing the corruption scandal. I think the corruption's there. I think that it's more of one of those things where the corruption aligns with his political interest. So he wants to merge the corruption and the political interest as a way to advance his politics. But really, what's more interesting about this than the expansion of his authority or corruption is what does this mean for Taiwan? And I think that this basically eliminates any real concerns that anybody had. And we've been saying that the Chinese were not planning an invasion of Taiwan for a while, even just on this channel, on my Twitter, and so on and so forth. But that this 2027 number that they've tried to propose for a Chinese invasion of Taiwan is just completely bogus. You don't, when you're a year out from planning the war that your country is preparing for 70 years, I don't think you eliminate like 5 out of 6 of your top military generals. You know, like, and what's ironic is that some people are trying to say that this is a sign that he's going to try to invade Taiwan. No. That makes zero sense. Like, he's going to get rid of the people who had experience for the biggest war that he's about to commit because, what, they maybe oppose him? The military never opposes a war. I mean, like, let's be real here. The real reason that the Chinese military exists is for an invasion of Taiwan. I can't imagine any of those guys would give real pushback if they were given the order, we're finally going to go in. Especially when, like, most military, like, U.S. military drills seem to suggest that we would not be prepared in that circumstance. And, of course, Taiwan would be a bloodbath, but I don't think the U.S. military would be able to really, or the Navy would be really able to prevent them in the long term. Especially since, you know, how are they going to get supplies there, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Which is, like, different than Ukraine. We could still easily get supplies to Ukraine. You can't get supplies to Taiwan. It's an island. If they surround the island, it's over. But again, you can't do that without your top military guys. And Xi has said for years now he has no real intent of invading Taiwan. He believes that Taiwan is part of China, but he's essentially wanted to uphold the old strategy as long as the Taiwanese don't try to stray away from the one China, two systems kind of model. So, I mean, I forgot. There's actually a different technical name for it than one China, two systems for Taiwan. But just one China, two systems, Hong Kong and Macau. But either way, it just seems like there's just no way that's going to happen. So I think really, and it makes the most sense to me, is the Chinese see the writing on the wall. America wants to go to war in some country, probably Iran, They've armed the Iranians, just like they kind of armed the Venezuelans, but not really. They've had more of a real role in Iran. And I think they just kind of think, continue to bog America down until they can't fight you anymore, and then you attack them, which is like basic Lao Tzu. I mean, not Lao Tzu, Sun Tzu. Sorry. So like the more you can win without actually attacking the enemy is always how you win a war. So since he's not attacking the enemy and he's letting the enemy defeat itself, China has to do nothing to win. So I think this has always been the problem with anything about the Chinese invading Taiwan, is that the Taiwanese strategy really seems to suggest that they would not invade Taiwan until after America can no longer defend Taiwan. And again, that all depends on if Taiwan wants to actually push for independence from China, which it's already essentially independent. Pushing for independence would be essentially changing their name from the Republic of China to the Republic of Taiwan.
Yeah.
It'd be completely useless. There's no reason for them to do it. It's the stupidest thing in the world. But yeah, so that's essentially what's going on there, Keller. Do you have anything that you think about that?
No, it's pretty straightforward. Yeah.
It's pretty self-explanatory. I mean, that's the thing about like a lot of the Chinese news, is that it's not actually that complicated.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, like business cycles and how they do it, but it's a lot of the same stuff that happens here. It's just
I don't know enough about China, but I do trust your judgment.
Yeah, I think Xi is kind of like Putin, where he's a pretty rational actor. He's also getting older. I really don't think he's going to make many rash decisions, and I don't think this is a rash decision. I think this is one of those things where there was corruption. He wants to get rid of the guy to advance his agenda. So those kind of just come together, and because he actually has no real intent of invading Taiwan, it really doesn't mean anything. But it does mean that he'll likely have more control over the Chinese army. So that's the real thing, is what happens in the future with the Chinese army. All right. I'm trying to think, what do we even have left to cover? You know?
Is there any new news in immigration?
Oh yeah, we talked about this. I feel like we should probably talk a bit about just what the updates are with this Alex Preddy guy and everything. Which I still kind of feel like the cops have, like, they've tried to make this whole case about him having a gun as if that justifies how they killed him. First off, I mean, he had the right to carry where he was. The Second Amendment does exist. He didn't brandish it at the officers. And if you watch the video, you see how he got shot, and it's like, okay, he was not a threat to anybody. But I think there's just been some kind of debate. Really, the talk about what to do about immigration, the deportations, the fact that Trump's not actually doing the deportations, and these Republicans are still being complete sycophants for him anyways, even though, again, they're not actually doing the deportations. All of it, to me, just strikes me as bizarre. But I don't know. My main thing has been kind of talking about there's just this argument between closed borders, open borders, and it feels like it really misses the heart of the issue, which is that the government cannot run immigration policy. Like, that's really the problem here, is that the government is running immigration policy, and there is a natural amount of immigrants that would come into the country. We don't know what that natural amount is. That's the calculation problem. Mises talks about it. I mean, it's essentially with any other kind of good. There is a natural amount of people who would come here and benefit America that would be determined by the market. The U.S. government has driven immigration flows by causing wars and causing welfare and causing all these other external problems that lead people here. And some people are like, well, it's not as much as you say. This is not an argument against all immigration. This is an argument against unnatural immigration. And you can't say that that doesn't exist. And it's a larger number than people think, especially when these people come in, the refugees are in particular, and they get settled by the U.S. government according to where the U.S. government wants them to be without any evaluation from the community. So I think that, the thing with the closed border people is that they trust the government too much to be able to actually enforce the right amount of immigration, which there's already problems with that, which is like why ICE exists and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But the open borders crowd, they have the same mistake, right? Is that they accept the premise that the government should run the border. The reality is immigration should be handled by local communities or at least by states, so that the states can determine who's coming in and who's coming out. And I think it really begs the question of the legitimacy in a libertarian society of something like the Interstate Commerce Clause. So, I mean, like, essentially, like, is it true that because, like we see this on a state level, right? Where the federal government essentially enforces an open border between all the states. Now, it's not necessarily that these states would just let anybody in from any other state on their own. It's part of what the government allows. So this is why you have areas that get gentrified or taken over without any say of the local communities or the private property owners in those areas. I mean, like, for instance, one of the obvious examples would be like Northern Virginia, where I'm at now. Obviously was once where the heart of the Confederacy lied, and now is basically part of the Washington swamp. You ask any of those communities that lived there 100 years ago what they would want according to their own consent, I doubt it would be 1 million Californians living in their state. And this is a constant problem. And I think, again, it's dependent largely on immigration is not as simple as an open border, as a closed border. It's an economic reality like anything else. And when the state runs immigration, they decide who comes in and who goes out. And that still happens with an open border. I think that's the problem people misunderstand. That still happens with an open border. If you just give everybody citizenship and everybody a right to vote when they come into the country, and the government basically ends people's right to association, which the government has ended Americans' right to association a long time ago, but you really end the right to association, that's not more free. It's just another form of government control over immigration. So, like, you're changing one small aspect of a much larger system. And I think the only way that you can solve the immigration issue is by abolishing the system. And this is what...
Well, I mean, yeah, we've talked about this multiple times.
Well, and this...
The whole reason why we have mass immigration is, like you said, because we wage wars, which creates refugees, and then we have to make it our responsibility since we create those refugees. We gotta take them in.
Yep.
That's what's happening in Europe. And
but
on top of that, we have all the incentives, social welfare to get them set up. We'll put you in a hotel room, we'll put you in an apartment, and put you in government housing until you get all settled. And then they stay there. And then, because we have all these other subsidizing grants, like we talked about with what's been going on in Minnesota, which is supposed to apply for Americans, like SBA loans and healthcare grants and all these subsidies, then these refugees get this smart idea. Well, why don't we just like fake this, make a bunch of government money, and just perpetually live off the government, from either welfare or subsidies, and then that creates more problems, and then people catch other immigrants catch wind of it, saying, okay, well, we like what our cousins are doing, so we'll come over and we'll join in on the fun. And then you have, Minnesota full of low IQ, 68 IQ Somalians, which then causes racial tensions, religious tensions, um, nativism, the increasement of nativism, and it all comes about because we have all this stuff in place that incentivizes mass immigration. So, like, ideally, if we just took away the stuff that's creating the problem, then we wouldn't have the problem in the first place. It will eventually fill out.
Well, and that's of course true, but that's not really the point I'm making. Like, I agree with you completely on that premise, and we should, of course, and this is what we've talked about in the past. I'm trying to make something that's a little bit more of a different point. I mean, that's obviously interrelated to that, but more about trying to eliminate this idea of open borders versus closed borders.
Well, yeah. Well, I get the point. Like,
Yeah.
the debate shouldn't be whether or not we should open our borders or close our borders. I'm saying this would be a moot point,
Yeah.
because if the system wasn't in place in the first place,
Yep.
then we wouldn't have to have the mass immigration that creates this debate in the first place.
But
I guess that we have all these people saying
instead
we
of
need to
just
close our borders.
instead of just the incentives themselves, what I'm trying to say is that you could also easily solve this by localizing immigration, like where
Well, yeah,
private property
yeah, I guess
owners,
that.
private property owners determine who can come in to certain areas based on their private communities, or at least localities can determine who can come in based on who lives there, through democratic functionings, through a real minarchist system. Then if Minnesota wants 1,000,000 Somalians, they can have 1,000,000 Somalians, but a state that doesn't want that, or a town or a neighborhood, which would be the preferable option, would be essentially small localized communities determine their own immigration based on private property agreements between the localized property owners. You could essentially make it so the only places where the immigrants would go would be based on natural immigration flows, based on market principles, even if they do have those subsidies, which I think that, like, likely the case would be the higher places that get more subsidies would likely eventually restrict them because they're giving out more free money. But who knows? I mean, that's not necessarily guaranteed. I think that, of course, the way you would solve the immigration problem, though, for America and see real self-deportations would be by cutting the subsidies and all the things that drive the people here, but by making it so that localities have the right to determine, and American citizens, once again, have a right to association that they haven't had since the implementation of the Civil Rights Act. And I think American culture basically holds this premise that once somebody is in America, under no circumstances can you not associate with them. If you don't want them in your restaurant, if you don't want them in your neighborhood, if you don't want them in your town, well, just fuck you. I mean, it doesn't really matter. You don't have a right to say who's in your town or anything like that. They're in America. And so since they're in America, that means they have to just be able to go wherever they want to, I guess. And so I think that needs to be eliminated. And I think that would solve a lot of the problems with the immigration. And I think the way you do that is by, I mean, really, you need to repeal the Civil Rights Act. You need to abolish the border and give it to private property owners. And you need to end all the things that drive immigration. Until you do that, both of the Republicans and the Democrats, or the people who advocate for a closed border or an open immigration policy or anything in between, are just falling into a false dichotomy. And it's kind of a red herring, whether to be open borders or closed borders from a libertarian perspective. And people will say, well, there's no real answer. Yeah, there is a real answer. It's just that neither of those are the answer. So I got into a debate with somebody about that this week. That's why I thought that would come up. And I thought with ICE and everything, we should talk about that because I just hear so many bad takes about immigration. And it's because of this false dichotomy where people really, really believe that there's one side that if everything was open border, we'd be living in paradise. And if we were closed borders, we deported every immigrant, we live in paradise. It's like, no. It's all basic economics, guys. It's basic economics. Just think about your calculation problem. And I know we don't want to think about individuals this way, but migrants are a product, right? Like labor is a product. The reason people come to new countries, they move from their old place to a new place, is because they think economic viability will be better where they're moving to. Even if it's for refugee status or family or something like that, it's based on the improvement of their economic conditions. Like living closer to your family is an improvement in your economic conditions. Living in a place where you're not getting bombed all the time is an improvement of your economic conditions. Why do people who are refugees from Syria move to Germany and not Zimbabwe? It's an improvement in their economic conditions. Zimbabwe is actually probably worse than Syria, so they don't want to move there. It's all economic. So if you naturalize and bring back the economic flows of immigration back to a true market level, and you lower the wages of Americans so that we talked about this last week, the inflation has made it so largely we can't employ Americans to work on farms anymore, and so on and so forth. If you really ticked away all those scales, it wouldn't be a problem. But nobody wants to do that because it would be too much of a reform, and the Republicans are too busy raping kids.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean that's the problem. And the Democrats are of course raping the kids too, so they don't get out on the hook. The left has been trying to play this game where somehow, after, they hid the Epstein files for an additional 4 years, now they're the ones who, even though it wasn't them that got it released, it was Thomas Massie, and Ro Khanna had helped, but it was really Massie more than anybody. It's Massie who they're giving millions and millions of dollars into his district to try to eliminate him and try to remove him. Mary Adelson, I think, gave another massive donation to his political opponent. But they're just such establishment shills. I mean, what can even be said for the left? I mean, the left is so far gone. It's like every week the right will say something so stupid and the left will find a way to say something even worse. And I just can't deal with them. It's just so hard to deal with them. But I saw some stuff basically trying to be like, wow, look at all these right-wing people. They're all pedophiles. Like, dude, do we need to go through Bill Clinton and all of them in it? Hillary Clinton was obviously in the Epstein files. You guys covered this up for years. There's plenty of Democrats in the Epstein files. Most of the people he's emailing, because there are emails from 2016, where somebody, of course, is emailing him about how most of his friends are sad, but he's probably happy that Trump won, which that's pretty bad. But basically showing that these people all support the Democrats. Oh man, the Republicans are so terrible. They're all pedophiles. The only way we can solve it is by giving more power to the government. Are you the stupidest person in the world or what? Can you be more retarded? Can you be more retarded? Oh, the government is run by pedophiles. So to stop the government being run by pedophiles, we need to give the government more power. Just get out of here. You're that's one of those things where it's people who say stuff like that, it's I really feel you remember in the old movies where they would like have like the big cane that would come out from the side of the stage and pull the person off.
Yeah.
That's what needs to happen to those kind of people from life. Like if you say that, you just get pulled off the stage from life. Like no more opinions. It's over. Sorry, you're gone. It's just too bad. And like just ugh, so many problems, and so little fixes. Once again, nothing's going to happen, and the world will keep on turning. So, Keller, do you have any closing remarks you want to give us before we close out this episode?
I'll keep everyone updated when more stuff about the Epstein files are released. I guess we'll have more stuff on the show about it.
Yeah.
But other than that,
And of course, more news as always. Any final conclusions or anything else anything else you want to add? Besides, Albania is owned by the Jews.
That's still up for debate.
No, it's not up for debate. Again, the Israelis recognize Kosovo. They're a major role in getting its independence with Bill Clinton and Hillary, which partially was to cover up the Monica Lewinsky scandal, but also we know now was connected to them trying to traffic, again, 1 million children through Kosovo, which is the place where they conducted the genocide of Serbs by the Albanian majority. And is recognized and basically administered by the Albanian government, despite some local controls. And of course, you had the president of Albania kissing Netanyahu's ass, talking about how much he fears but also respects the Mossad. Mind you, Albania is a Muslim country that supports Israel and is white, so like you literally could not be more cooked. I mean, imagine being a Muslim supporting NATO country. Like, again, if you're a white Muslim, we already know that your opinion's immediately dismissed, right? And so you're trying to tell me that I should support a country of white Muslims. Sorry, no. So just so much with that. So either way, haha, Serbia wins again, Keller loses, and we'll see you all next time.